Catherine stood in line at the small family diner, mentally calculating her own budget while pretending not to notice the man ahead of her. He was perhaps in his mid-50s, wearing a jacket that had seen better days and shoes that were clean but worn through at the heels. She'd watched him study the menu board for several minutes, his lips moving slightly as he did math in his head. When he reached the counter, he ordered carefully, "Just the soup and a coffee, please. And could I get some extra crackers?" The teenager at the register rang it up. "That'll be $8.50. The man pulled out his wallet and opened it with hands that trembled slightly. Catherine could see from her position behind him that the wallet was mostly empty. A few ones, some change, maybe $7 total. His face flushed as he recounted the bills, hoping somehow they'd multiply. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, his voice thick with embarrassment. "I thought I had more. Could you just do the coffee? And maybe just the crackers?" "Sir, the crackers are free with soup, but I can't give them to you if you don't order soup." The teenager's voice wasn't unkind, just matter of fact, following the rules. Catherine watched the man's shoulders slump. He was counting out his dollar bills and quarters, trying to make coffee and dignity somehow equal the money he didn't have. Around them, other customers were getting impatient, sighing audibly, checking their phones. She made a decision. "Excuse me," Catherine said, stepping forward. "I'll take care of his meal. And actually, could you upgrade that to the soup and sandwich combo? Everyone needs more than just soup." The man turned to look at her, his face a mixture of shame and desperate gratitude. "I can't let you do that, ma'am. I'll be fine with just coffee." "It's already done," Catherine said gently, handing her card to the teenager. "And I'm having the same thing, so we might as well eat together. Unless you'd prefer to sit alone, which I completely understand." The man's eyes filled with tears he was clearly trying to hide. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Let's just get our food and sit down." Catherine paid for both meals, added a slice of pie to each order, and led the way to a booth by the window. The man followed hesitantly, as if afraid she might change her mind or reveal some hidden motive. When they sat down, he kept his hands in his lap, not quite meeting her eyes. "I'm Catherine," she said, extending her hand across the table. "Robert." His handshake was firm despite his obvious discomfort. "This is very kind of you, but you should know I'm not a charity case. I'm just having a rough week." "I didn't think you were, and everyone has rough weeks. Some are just rougher than others." Their food arrived, and Catherine watched Robert stare at the sandwich like he couldn't quite believe it was real. When he finally took a bite, she saw him close his eyes briefly, either savoring the taste or fighting back emotion. "When did you last eat?" Catherine asked gently. "Yesterday morning. I've been trying to stretch what I have until my disability check comes through on Friday. There was a delay in processing, something about paperwork. I've been calling all week, but you know how government offices are." He took another bite, this time slower, more controlled. "I'm a veteran, served 2 tours in Afghanistan, got injured in an IED attack and couldn't work my regular job anymore. The disability pays enough to cover rent and utilities, but not much else, especially when there are delays. I'm sorry, that shouldn't happen to people who serve their country. Lots of things shouldn't happen." Robert's voice wasn't bitter, just tired. "But they do. You learn to manage. Usually I plan better, but my medication cost more this month than I expected, and I had to choose between food and staying mentally stable. The medication won out." Catherine felt something tighten in her chest. She'd seen her own father make similar choices near the end of his life, trading dignity for survival one small decision at a time. "Do you have family nearby?" "Had a wife once. She left after I came back different from how I left. Can't blame her, really. I wasn't easy to live with, all the nightmares and anger and pain. My kids were young when she took them. I see them sometimes, but they have their own lives now. I'm just the broken dad who sends birthday cards and tries not to be a burden. You're not broken. You're surviving circumstances that would destroy most people. Robert looked at her directly for the first time, really studying her face. Why are you doing this? People don't usually stop to help. They pretend not to see, or they assume I'm an addict or lazy. You don't know me. I could be lying about everything. You could be, but I don't think you are. And even if you were, you're still a human being who was hungry. That's reason enough. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Catherine told him about her work as a teacher, about the students who struggled and the system that often failed them. Robert told her about his life before the war, when he'd been a carpenter who built houses and furniture, when his hands were steady and his mind was clear. I still dream about building things, he said quietly. In my dreams, my hands don't shake, and I can remember measurements, and I create something beautiful out of raw materials. Then I wake up and remember that version of me is gone. Is it? Gone completely? The doctors say my hands will never be steady enough for detailed work again. The tremors are permanent side effect of the injuries. And my memory, it's like Swiss cheese now. I start projects and forget what I was doing. It's frustrating and embarrassing. Catherine was quiet for a moment, thinking. What if you didn't need steady hands or perfect memory? What if there was a different way to build? I don't understand. I teach at Roosevelt Elementary. We're starting a woodworking program for the kids, teaching them basic skills and the value of creating things with their hands. But I don't know anything about woodworking. I've been trying to find someone to help me develop the curriculum, someone who understands the craft and could teach me what the kids need to learn. Robert stared at her. You're not serious. Completely serious. It wouldn't be full-time and it wouldn't pay much, but it would be something. You'd be teaching teachers and helping design projects. Your hands shake? Fine. That's what the kids' hands will do too, because they're learning. Your memory has gaps. We'll write everything down, create detailed lesson plans. You'd be perfect because you understand what it means to struggle and persevere. I don't have a teaching certificate. I don't have any credentials for working with kids. You have experience and knowledge and the ability to connect with people who are struggling. That's worth more than any certificate. And this is an after-school volunteer program that we're hoping to get funding for. We need someone who loves the craft enough to help us build something meaningful. Robert's hands were shaking more now, but Catherine realized it wasn't from his injury. He was emotional, overwhelmed, trying to process what she was offering. Why would you do this for me? You don't know if I'm any good. What if I'm terrible with kids? Then we'll figure it out together. But I don't think you will be. I think you're someone who remembers what it feels like to be written off, to have people look past you instead of seeing you. That makes you exactly the kind of person kids need to meet. The teenager from the counter appeared with their pie. Is everything okay over here? Your food good? It's perfect, Robert said, his voice rough. Everything is absolutely perfect. After they finished eating, Catherine drove Robert to a nearby grocery store and filled a cart with basics. Bread, peanut butter, canned soup, pasta, coffee. Things that would last until his check came through. He protested at first, but she was firm. This isn't charity, Robert. This is an advance on the consulting work you're going to do for my woodworking program. Consider it a signing bonus. I haven't said yes yet. Haven't you? Catherine smiled as she added a bag of coffee to the cart. You've been talking about project ideas for the last 20 minutes. You're already planning curriculum in your head." Robert laughed, a surprise sound that seemed unfamiliar to him. "I guess I am." She drove him back to his apartment, a small studio in a building that had seen better decades. Before he got out of the car, he turned to her with tears openly streaming down his face now. "I woke up this morning thinking about not waking up tomorrow. Thinking maybe it would be easier if I just stopped trying. I went to that diner with my last few dollars intending to have one final decent meal before I did something stupid." He wiped his eyes roughly. "Then you appeared, and you saw me. Not a veteran or a disability case or a problem to be solved. Just a person who needed help. You saved my life today, Catherine. I need you to know that." Catherine felt her own eyes sting. "You saved your own life by choosing to have that meal instead of giving up. I just happened to be in line behind you. But I'm grateful I was, Robert. I really am." Over the next few months, Robert became an integral part of Roosevelt Elementary's after-school program. He worked with Catherine to develop a woodworking curriculum that started simple and built slowly, teaching kids to respect tools and materials and the process of creation. His hands still shook, but he learned to work with the tremors instead of fighting them. His memory still had gaps, but he and Catherine created detailed written guides that helped both him and the students. The kids loved him. They called him Mr. Robert, and they didn't care that his hands weren't steady or that sometimes he had to pause and check his notes to remember what came next. They cared that he was patient and kind, and that he treated their clumsy beginner projects like they were masterpieces. "You know what I realized?" Robert said to Catherine one afternoon as they cleaned up after a session where 10-year-olds had made simple birdhouses. "I spent years thinking I'd lost my purpose when I lost my steady hands. But maybe this was my purpose all along, not building perfect furniture for wealthy clients, but teaching kids that imperfect creation is still valuable, that you don't have to be perfect to make something meaningful." "You're teaching them more than woodworking," Catherine said. "You're teaching them that setbacks don't define you. That struggle can be part of the story without being the ending." 6 months after their meeting in the diner, Catherine nominated Robert for a Community Service Award. At the ceremony, she told the story of how they'd met, about a man counting change and a meal that became a turning point. "Robert taught me something that day," Catherine said to the assembled crowd. "He taught me that the small moments matter most, that paying for someone's lunch or noticing when someone is struggling can change the entire trajectory of a life. Not because the gesture itself is so significant, but because it reminds people they're seen, they matter, they're not alone in their struggles." Robert stood beside her, no longer the man who'd counted his last dollars with shaking hands. He was a teacher, a mentor, a person with purpose. His hands still trembled, his memory still had gaps, but he'd learned to build a meaningful life within his limitations. After the ceremony, a reporter asked Robert what advice he'd give to others in similar situations, people struggling at the edge of giving up. "Accept the help," he said simply. "When someone extends a hand, take it. Pride is expensive, and sometimes we can't afford it. That doesn't make us weak, it makes us human. And being human means needing each other, especially in the hardest moments." Years later, Catherine would still drive past that diner and think about the line that day, about the decision to step forward instead of looking away. The woodworking program had grown, served hundreds of students, and launched several into carpentry careers. Robert had published a guide for adaptive woodworking that helped other veterans and disabled individuals find their way back to the craft they loved. But more than any of that, Catherine had learned the truth of small mercies and human connection, that we never know when we're standing behind someone in their darkest moment. that the choice to see people in their struggle and respond with compassion doesn't just change their day. It can change their life, and in changing theirs, it transforms our own. Sometimes the most important thing we can do is notice when someone is quietly checking their wallet, counting dollars that won't be enough, and choose to say, "I see you, you matter, and you don't have to face this moment alone." If this story reminded you that small acts of kindness can save lives, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below about a time when someone helped you in a moment of need, or when you chose to help a stranger who was struggling. Your story might inspire someone else to notice the person counting change at the checkout, wondering how they'll make it through another day.